fans of the Miami Dolphins had dreams stitched together with hope, with that flickering light of belief that maybe, finally, this season would be the one to break a drought that has stretched across decades. A playoff win. It sounded so simple when whispered in the offseason, when everything still felt possible. But 6 games in, that hope feels more like a cruel mirage shimmering on the horizon. 1 win, 5 losses. The numbers sit there like a wound that refuses to close. How did it all unravel so fast? How did a team built on promise, with all that offensive firepower, all that talk about chemistry and speed and ambition, end up looking so flat, so uncertain, so painfully disconnected? Every Sunday feels heavier than the last, and that lone victory, that single, narrow escape against the Jets, doesn't even shine anymore. It feels more like an obligation fulfilled, not a triumph earned. There's a certain irony in watching the Dolphins win against the only team that hasn't managed to win at all. It's like celebrating a heartbeat after being told the patient is still in critical condition. The excitement has faded, replaced by that uneasy silence that fills the spaces between disappointment and disbelief. Now, around the league, the laughter stings. The jokes circulate, bouncing from one show to another, from one analyst's smirk to another's eye roll. Once again, the Dolphins have become the punchline, the easy target in a sport that doesn't forgive failure. Pro Football Talk didn't hold back either. Mike Florio's latest power rankings dropped like a hammer on whatever was left of Miami's dignity. Scroll through the list, past the middle, past the lower end, and there they are, number 31. Right there, hovering just above that green team from New York that hasn't even tasted victory yet. The ranking didn't change from last week. It didn't move an inch. Stuck. Like everything else about this season feels stuck. The rhythm, the confidence, the identity. 2 weeks ago, the Dolphins were at number 28. There was a moment when it looked like they might be crawling back toward respectability after that Monday Night Football win against those same Jets. But that flicker of progress didn't last long. The league moved on, the other teams found their groove, and Miami stayed behind. It's strange, isn't it? How momentum can vanish so quickly. 1 week you're talking about adjustments, finding rhythm, unlocking potential. The next, you're talking about survival, about avoiding embarrassment. The locker room must feel like a place filled with echoes now. You can almost imagine the silence stretching after another loss. Helmets dropped on the floor, eyes unfocused. Players searching for words that don't sound like excuses. Coaches staring at film that only shows what they already know. Mistakes, missed tackles, bad reads, poor execution. And yet, despite all that, there's another game coming. Always another game. Week 7, the Browns in Cleveland. The schedule doesn't pause for heartbreak. The Browns sit at number 28 in the same power rankings. Not great, but better. And somehow that makes it worse. Because that gap between number 31 and number 28, as meaningless as it might look, feels like a canyon. Can the Dolphins actually climb out of it? Can they go into Cleveland and do more than just exist? More than just hang around until the clock runs out? It's not about numbers anymore. It's about pulse, pride, presence. Dylan Gabriel, Quinton Judkins. They're not names meant to scare anyone. Not legends yet. But right now, they're on a team that plays with more coherence, more energy, more purpose. Miami, on the other hand, looks like a team trying to remember who they are. There was a time when the Dolphins' offense was something you had to prepare for like a storm, the kind of speed that tore defenses apart. But lately, that same offense feels predictable, hesitant. Drives stall. Momentum fades. Even when a play connects, it doesn't feel like a spark, more like a sigh of relief. The defense, too, can't seem to find rhythm. Missed assignments pile up like debris, and by the time adjustments come, the damage is already done. Maybe it's not about schemes or stats anymore. Maybe it's about belief. When a team starts to lose faith in itself, you can see it. Not in the score, but in the body language. You see it in the way players walk off the field, the way the sideline looks when another third down slips away. There's something fragile about that kind of confidence, something that cracks under the slightest pressure. Still, even in all this chaos, there's something hauntingly compelling about the Dolphins. It's not beauty, it's tension. Every snap feels like a question without an answer. Every possession carries the weight of what could have been. And that's what keeps fans watching, even when they swear they're done. Because somewhere deep down, there's that stubborn belief that maybe, just maybe, something will click. But can it? Can this team still find a reason to fight? The answer doesn't live in the headlines or the rankings. It lives in the quiet moments, in the huddle, in the line of scrimmage, in the look between quarterback and receiver when everything else fades. Mike Florio's rankings may seem like just another piece of weekly content, but for the Dolphins, it's a mirror, a brutal, unforgiving reflection of where they stand in the eyes of the league. It's not just about being number 31. It's about what that represents. Irrelevance. And for a team that spent years trying to escape that word, it cuts deeper than most would admit. The numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story either. Behind every failure, there's a moment. A play that could have gone differently. A decision that could have turned the tide. Maybe it's easy to forget that in the blur of losses, but inside that locker room, those moments live on, replaying endlessly. Is there still a heartbeat under all that disappointment? You can almost feel it, faint but there. Maybe it's the players who refuse to give up. Maybe it's the fans who still show up, voices hoarse, hearts tired, but still there. That kind of loyalty deserves something in return. Cleveland won't be an easy trip. It's not just another game. It's a test of identity. If Miami loses again, the numbers won't just change on paper. The narrative will sink even deeper into despair. But if they win, even narrowly, maybe that's enough to start rewriting the story. The Browns have their own battles, their own doubts, but they play like a team that's learning how to overcome them. That's the difference. One team searching for rhythm, the other trying to remember it. How much longer can Miami drift before something gives? Before frustration turns into fracture? Every season has a breaking point, and this one feels dangerously close. There's no magic speech that fixes this, no stat sheet that hides the truth. What's left is raw effort, players taking ownership, coaches adjusting not for optics, but for survival, fans hoping, because hope is what fans do, even when logic says otherwise. It's strange how quickly narratives shift. Just months ago, the Dolphins were the team of speed, creativity, and promise. Now they're a cautionary tale. But football is unpredictable. Sometimes, all it takes is one win, one real, hard-earned, defiant win, to shift everything. So, what happens if Miami goes into Cleveland and pulls it off? Maybe nothing changes on the surface. Maybe they climb a single spot in Florio's rankings, barely noticeable. But inside that locker room, that could mean everything. Because momentum doesn't start with a miracle. It starts with a spark, small, almost invisible. Maybe that's all the Dolphins need right now. Something to remind them that they're still alive in this fight. And if they don't, then maybe it's time to face harder truths. About leadership, about direction, about what this team really is beneath all the slogans and highlight reels. The league isn't patient. The fans aren't patient. And the Dolphins, more than anyone, can't afford to be patient anymore. Somewhere between all the noise, there's still a question lingering in the air. Who are the Miami Dolphins right now? A team waiting to wake up, or a team that's already fallen asleep at the wheel? The answer will come soon enough. Maybe not in the standings, maybe not in Florio's rankings, but in how they respond. Not to the boos, not to the memes, but to themselves. Because when you're sitting at number 31, there's nowhere left to hide. Only one direction left to go. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly where it begins again.